Yeah, I think what we really need to do on this show is start talking about like dank death metal bands, like really trashy, nasty, like go into porno grind a little bit.
Yeah, if we're talking trashy, nasty, I can talk about the bathrooms at the temples in India that my wife just went and visited.
Oh my.
Oh God, it's horror stories.
I just think it'd be fun to read lyrics from dank death metal bands, like I'm piling shit into the back of a truck and your dead body's there and like it's been and stuff. Yeah.
I've been shoving shit down your throat with my mask
for 20 years. Yeah, something like that. I'll tell you what, this new theme song really gets my shit pumping.
It's like a slowed down version of early In Flames part of it.
Yeah, a little bit.
And that's kind of, I think, why you dig it. You just don't realize it.
We need to talk about this band sometime.
Okay.
Do their whole catalog. In case you didn't know, this is Krieg from Brazil. I like that their singer's name is Daniel Corpse. Yeah.
Okay, now we're ready.
Okay, now we're ready. Now you are ready for this episode.
You're listening to Discography Discussion, episode 109, Tesseract, presented by discussmetal.com. And if you're a fan of one-word song titles, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Geoff. It's about time Geoff gets to talk about one of his favorite bands.
Yes, I'm excited for this episode. It won't take very long for you to figure out why. I might be a fanboy of a particular singer.
Might be a fanboy?
Okay, he's one of my favorite singers. Maybe my favorite singer currently going, actually.
A couple weeks ago, I was all like, oh, man, I love Thursday. They're one of my favorite bands ever. And he's like, fuck Thursday. Just listen to Tesseract.
Yeah, it was pretty much because I'm like, I had been listening to a lot of Tesseract right before Thursday, and God, was that a huge mistake. It just made me just cringe every time Geoff would sing, especially on the earlier albums.
I definitely cringed a few times during Tesseract.
I was shocked at first. I'm listening to the first album, and it's this weird combination of between the Buried in Me, progressive, adult, contemporary death metal, mixed with new metal in places, and maybe even a little bit of death grind. Just a little bit, Geoff, don't worry. And then Altered State comes in, and I get some of the prettiest female vocals I've ever heard in my life.
Dude.
That's a dude, and that's Ash O'Hara, and he's probably my favorite vocalist in that's currently going.
To be fair, man, he's up there.
And
it takes some talent to get that high and hold it and not screw it up.
And not go full Claudio.
Right. And I had we'll link it in the show notes, and when we'll get to it whenever we talk about Altered State. But I don't want to jump ahead here.
I was pretty surprised by Tesseract because usually when Geoff recommends a band, this is what I imagine. Start off with impossible to pronounce name. Follow that up with like it can't just be from Sweden or from Norway. It has to be from like Indonesia. And then usually what I hear is something like this.
You're 1 for 3 at this point.
And then I'm like, dude, they only have one full-length album. And you're like, yeah, but they've got like 14 EPs that are all 74 minutes long. And I'm like, I don't care. So yeah, Tesseract was kind of like, okay, Britain, progressive metal, kind of contortionist-like. I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, this is my mainstream go-to. This band is.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't call it mainstream. I mean, like mainstream for Geoff.
Yeah, for me, this is mainstream. Okay, let's get that straight for starters. So yes, whenever like I hear people listening to pop music, and I want them to hear what I think poppy mainstream music should sound like, I show them Tesseract, especially Altered State, because that is just it's magic in my ears.
Have you heard "Pull Me Under" by Dream Theater? It's one of the most poppy songs I've ever heard.
Right. I'm just trying to explain what if it was a world made of Geoffs instead of Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears, and Michael Jackson's. Granted, I love Michael Jackson.
I'm just going to take a drink of my coffee and think about what you just said.
Well, we're not allowed to talk about Michael Jackson anymore.
Yeah. I would have, if it was a world of Geoff's, everybody's favorite band would be Tesseract, or one of their favorite bands.
Well, before I let Dan start talking about dank metal bands, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher. So if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening, and now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
We love 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion, and we love them because they make us feel good inside. They make us feel warm and fuzzy and gooey and whatever kind of feelings Geoff gets when he listens to Tesseract. But
we can't air that on the episode, or at least it'd be beeped out by Joe the whole time.
Oh, he doesn't beat me, dude. I feed that thing $25 every week, and I can say whatever the fuck I want. However, rating, reviewing, and subscribing is the lifeblood of a podcast. If we want to get recommended to other listeners that haven't heard our podcast, those algorithms are going to look for how many ratings, how many reviews, and how many subscribers we have. So it's really the best thing that you can do for a podcast if you want to support them without pitching money over to their Patreon, which you can also do over at patreon.com/discussmetal.
$1 a month gets you access to that exclusive album review feed.
We got a Facebook message from Eric Swanson. He says, "Hey guys, I just recently found your podcast and I am hooked. I'm a huge metalhead, but don't really have many people in my life that share my same passion for heavy music. So it was nice to find this and hear you discuss some of the bands that I love. I'm addicted to it and can't stop listening. Keep it going, guys. Oh, and thanks for including the Christian bands, too. You're welcome. Because those are the ones that I grew up with, and I'm glad you guys like them and are giving them props."
Sounds like Dan's not the only one who grew up listening to predominantly Christian metal.
Yeah, I mean, apparently there's really no way to quantify the amount of people that have the same background that I have. And I'm surprised by that.
It's cool, though, too, because I think it's important that we give, especially, I'm not overtly. I didn't have that not overtly, but I didn't have that Christian upbringing that you did. But I love Living Sacrifice. I would love Living Sacrifice, whether they're Christian or, Hindi or Satanist. It's just good music. And the fact that it didn't get as quite open to the masses just because they were quote unquote Christian. I'm sorry, yeah, they're Christian, but they're a fucking awesome band. I'm sorry, they're one of the greatest metal bands ever, Christian or not. So it's stuff like that, it's important that we get those bands out there so people can realize that there's some amazing stuff out there they may not necessarily heard in the mainstream.
Let us be a living example. Music is music. We're listening to metal. We're talking about metal. This is Discography Discussion. That might be our new tagline this summer.
Cool. It absolutely could be.
Yeah. And I think we'd all be fine with it. So we did get another message on Facebook as well from Randall. Said, "I just listened to the Norma Jean episode and I wanted to tell you more about the If You Got It at 5 video. I'm the one doing flips into the pool, and there were some shots in the fake puke in the background doing over-the-top reactions."
Oh, that was fake puke?
Hold on. At the end of the video, I'm wearing a green striped tank top. We actually did the gallon challenge into a small plastic kiddie pool. No fake puke was used. The obvious fake shots was milk loaded into a tube hooked up to an air compressor. At the end, when you see yellow puke, that's 100% real. LOL. Also, in the video, if you see someone holding a red Solo cup, not milk. We all got super drunk that day. I was okay until the gallon challenge. Once I started puking, I blacked out. That's pretty fucking metal, so we'll take it.
Wow.
Thank you for that behind-the-scenes glance into one of our favorite bands.
Yes, that was fun.
I talked to Randall for a while on Messenger that same night, and apparently he has forwarded our Norma Jean episode to Corey Brannon for review.
Uh-oh.
So we'll see how that goes.
Continued. So, Geoff.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about Tesseract.
Fantastic band from England. What else do you need to know? They're progressive metal. kind of bordering on closer to the prog rock, depending on the album that you're listening to. But they're a lot like the Contortionists. They kind of, walk that tightrope and kind of sway one way or the other a little bit. That might be part of the reason why I like them, is because they kind of hit the same spots that I'm looking for that the Contortionist does. But they came out with their first album, when did that come out? I think that was 2011.
2011. We know I'm hooked. You named your album after my favorite Metallica song.
Yeah, and it's definitely got a lot of different elements. They're pulling from a lot of places. They're super technical, but it's a lot like early Contortionists in the fact that there's some pretty vocals. Although I have to say that this first album, the clean vocals are a little thin. I think Dan would agree on that one, because I think he said the same thing while we were messaging earlier this week.
Yeah, I love the music on this one, but the vocals really needed some work. Dude sounds really thin, doesn't always sound into it, and there's like some screams here, and I'm kind of glad they just dropped that, because it was not doing it for me, even a little bit.
Yeah, I think the thinness was kind of him trying to sound airy and pretty. He just needed to quite literally grab it by the balls, in my opinion. I think that would have been a better angle to go with.
I just think for this kind of music, a deeper, guttural, growling vocalist would be better.
I'm going to differ from you. I actually like the screams on this. They're kind of ethereal, and that part of it works for me. It doesn't have to be the deep guttural for this. It's kind of like, I don't know what it is, but it worked for me on this. It was more like Wraith-like. It was.
I thought it was just thin and shitty, to be honest with you. Like, it sounds like he was really pushing himself even to do those, almost like he was being pressured into doing it to try to match the music itself or something like that. Like, even if they'd had a vocalist that was staying in the higher register, I would have been okay with that. I mean, I like raspy or ethereal vocals. This doesn't sound like that, though. This sounds like Chester Bennington screaming, which I'm not like the biggest fan of, and that's all I hear out of this is kind of your latter day nu metal type of screams.
Okay, so I get what you're saying, and I can see that. I think that's actually a pretty good comparison as far as the type of vocals that we're hearing, because that's a lot of Chester Bennington here as far as the screams are concerned. I think the screams are kind of on par with him.
Do you think the guttural vocalist preference has more to do with Between the Buried and Me basically doing the exact same thing, only shoving the guttural vocal in?
Yeah. He's grinning and smiling. Of course
it is. I think so, yeah. Well, like when Geoff makes early Contortionist comparisons, what did I like about the early Contortionist? That
it reminded us of Between the Buried and Me.
And it sounded like this, but had guttural, deeper vocals that really accentuated the cleans and kind of created this like peanut butter jelly situation that I love so much. This is more like peanut butter with like a little bit of Nutella spread on it.
I fucking hate Nutella, man.
It's overrated. I'm with you on that.
I guess I'm a little nicer to this first album than you guys are, but that's because I'm definitely going to be a bigger fan. The clean vocals remind me of a band called Penback, which is kind of a proggy, emo-ish, weird sounding band from California. But that's where the clean vocals, especially in the lower register, remind me of that. And I like that band quite a bit. But I don't think the vocals just quite, the clean vocals match what the music is on this. And that, I don't think that's too shocking on a first album. I don't think they're the first band that we've reviewed that we felt that way, where they hadn't come into their own yet.
I don't dislike this album at all. I was actually surprised how much of it reminded me of Between the Buried and Me. And then as soon as I get comfortable with that comparison, it turns into straight Dream Theater. And then as soon as I get comfortable with that, there's just this little hint of nu metal thrown in. So I was shocked that it didn't continue that way going into Altered State.
Well, and let me be clear. I loved the music on the first album a lot, but the vocals just didn't work for me. So when you get into Altered State, you've got a nice, I don't know, I don't want to say it's peanut butter and jelly, because then it would have to have guttural death metal vocals in it. Let's just keep this going.
2013. If something was missing before, if something was off, if something wasn't quite right, in Dan's eyes, it is now quite right.
Oh, yeah, it's nice. I mean, the vocals are, I don't know, what do you think, 800 times better than they were on the first album?
Speaking of modern music, best vocals on a progressive metal / progressive rock album in the last 15 years easily. Ash O'Hara's got a unique tone, but my God, can he hit those high notes? And it's amazing. He sounds like a fucking angel sometimes, man. You're like, how the hell does a dude hit those notes and hold it without and he can do the crazy thing about it. Most of the people, they kind of end up doing like this fake vibrato with their voice whenever they hit those high notes because they can't stay on a note for an extended period of time. This dude can just hit it and stay there and just plant it like it's nobody's business. It's insane. Absolutely insane. And there is a YouTube video of the first I think it's the first 3 songs. It's like 14 minutes long. It's of Matter, because essentially there's really only 4 songs on this, because this is kind of like a you have like Of Matter 1, 2, and 3, Of Mind 1 and 2, Of Reality 1, 2, and 3, and Of Energy 1 and 2. That's essentially, those are the track titles when they add a little bit behind it. But the Of Matter is the best 14 minutes in prog rock / prog metal, seriously, in the last 14 years. It's unbelievable. It is easily my most listened to album. If you go on, because you know you can go on Spotify and you can see what you listen to the most. You can do that really with any these music services. Altered State is by far the most listened to by me. I think the Language by the Contortionist is number 2.
I don't love it that much, but part of that just comes from me being a meathead. Like, I worked really hard this week, like 12-hour days, 5 days this week. So I have to admit that it was kind of hard for me to stay awake for some of these albums. By the end of the day, my headphones have been broken, so I've been working like music free for 5 days, and I'm more insane for it. But what I really liked about Altered State was just that it was the idea of Tesseract, but actually done like full on. Like, it was almost like one was just like, hey, here's an idea that we have for a band. But then Altered State was like, okay, great, let's throw some money into it and make it into a real thing.
Yeah, they threw so much into it, they actually ran out of money. And that's why the drums are tracked. And that's the other reason why we need to see the Of Matter video, so you can see them play those first 3 songs live continuously through, and it is bang on, man. Those guys, they're hell of musicians.
By tracked, you mean programmed?
Yes.
That is unfortunate, especially listening to how good the band is. But I've heard worse.
Yeah, as far as programmed drums, it's mostly, I mean, I know there's some live playing on there, but most of it has been programmed, and it's essentially because they ran out of time and ran out of money.
Then there's the first album by Dream Theater that featured Mike Mangini, where he played like a programmed drummer because he can.
Well, there's not a huge difference if you listen to that video. If you watch that video, go back and listen to it. I mean, you can hear in the beginning as Ash is getting his feet wet, he's a little pitchy in spots, but as soon as he gets going, the cohesion of the entire group is easy to see. They're not one of those bands that's going to be running around and jumping and off the top of their amps, and you can see the lead singer climbing up the stack and try to get up on the rafters.
So they're not all like just Burns Red.
No, they're not that. But they're going to play just fantastic musicians. I don't necessarily know if they're going to be the greatest entertainers, but I tell you what, Ash is easy on the eyes. He's a good-looking dude.
Totally relevant to our music discussion, by the way.
Well, I'm serious. I mean, like, here's this dude. I mean, he looks like a fucking model, okay? And he sings like an angel. And, yeah, I mean, what's not to like about that? Who are you going to tell me you wouldn't want to be him?
I don't know about that, because if I was him, I would do deep, guttural death metal vocals.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just saying that, as far as like a front man, I'm like,
I mean, he's no Tommy Rogers from Between the Buried and Me, who can also sing like an angel and also can do deep guttural death metal vocals.
But does he?
I guess they're all just different strokes for different folks.
But does he look like an angel?
I think he does.
Okay, well then there we go. But that's that's kind of what you want in a front man. You want somebody who's beautiful and can sing beautifully, and that's exactly what Ash does. He's amazing. I can't explain how amazing this album is to me. It is my go-to when I just want to chill, and I've over-listened to The Contortionist.
I think it's really good. I just, for some reason, don't have the emotional attachment to it that you do. I mean, because don't get me wrong, I love the djenty waves that they kind of travel through. I like the way that all sounds, like the way it all comes together.
Well, that's what you are hitting on. One thing, if there is something lacking in their music, it's the emotion. They are, some people would complain that they are overproduced.
I mean, just a little bit,
and that they strive so much for perfection that you're like, okay, it's like they're robots with somebody who's a half robot, half angel who does the vocals. And I would get it. I mean, I understand that, but I'm a little different on that. Depending on how I'm feeling. There's some days that I'm emotional as hell, and I go back to my old school emo days, or I'm pissed off and I go straight to the grindcore. But if I'm just sitting back and I ain't got shit to do and I'm not really angry about anything, I don't need to pick me up, I just want to hear some good fucking music, it doesn't get any better than this, in my opinion. I understand what you're saying because I actually agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it to you. It's very good.
Yes.
There's no denying that. You're deaf if you can't hear that this band is obviously talented and they're really good at what they do.
But you're right, and I agree that they can be sometimes antiseptically good, if that makes sense.
It's modern Dream Theater syndrome. It's so mechanical, it loses feeling. But if you ask the band, I'm just not into what they're doing. And I don't think that's the case with a band like Tesseract. I think they're just good musicians who write good music and then play it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Also, Geoff, Tommy Rogers is staring you down.
Yeah, I see.
So that's my prom date.
Yeah, I will say he's no Ash O'Hara. I'm sorry. He's had a lot of struggles in life. He's overcome them. He's a pretty cool dude. He's got a very interesting story. Never knew his dad. Essentially, his dad was a sperm donor. His mom stuck him in Catholic school, fucking hated it, trying to figure out what the hell to do in life.
See, and that's why it's weird to me that there's not more of an emotional attachment, like even vocally. Seems like there's a lot to go off of.
I think that's just him striving for perfection because of the shit that he's had to deal with.
I did like this album, but I don't think things really picked up for me for Tesseract until we got to Polaris.
2015.
Really? I'm shocked, actually.
It's got a little bit more of like a hard rock mentality to it, and that's almost better to me than trying to have like a Dream Theater progressive metal tinge to it. Don't misunderstand me. It very much is that. Still. But I don't know, like, original vocalist is back. He sounds way better than he did on the first album.
Yes, he does.
I mean, just way better. And I like his more hard rock and even Joe said a little bit new metal type of singing. Doesn't have any of those weak screams on here. And I think his voice does sound a little bit more emotional, a little bit more human.
Yes, it does. And I like his falsetto, too. His falsetto that he does, when he breaks into that, when he gets that voice break and then hits it, yeah, I think that works really well for him on here because he does that quite a bit on the last two albums.
I think this definitely sounds the most Dream Theater that we've had so far, just with it being almost like it's djenty, but like it's so djenty that it's almost kind of funky.
Yeah, and this album was mixed in 5.1. I got to mention it because I'm the fucking nerd in the house when it comes to that shit.
Well, the album kicks off with Dystopia, and right away, it's got an upbeat groove.
The first two albums start off much more ethereal sounding. And like that's never a good fucking sign. Because it's like 9 o'clock at night, and I have been working all day, and I'm tired, and I probably ate some pizza, so there's like, my body's just like, oh my God, why do you do this to me every single day?
Carb overload.
And And, I sit down on my couch in front of my stereo system. I pop on a Tesseract album. It's all like, coming in,
guys.
and I'm asleep in 10 minutes. But on Polaris, it starts off punchy and a little bit more attention grabbing. So it's able to kind of connect with me better. Like, I think maybe it was just a sequencing thing on the first two albums. I love the first two albums. I think they sound incredible.
This album doesn't hesitate.
This album is more confident in who it is.
I get it, but I don't mind, those intros and, where it's all fancy schmancy
That's fine, because you
shit.
sit at a desk all day. No, I'm just fucking with you.
I do now, man. It fucking sucks. This past week I had to
Tell me about how much it sucks to be sitting down in a temperature-controlled environment all day.
Well, considering it's the first time in my adult life that I've done it, I've always been, sit down, get up, go do your shit, keep doing shit until the end of the day. Maybe sit down, to write a couple emails. And now that's all I do, and it's weird. I'm sure the grass is always greener on the other side kind of bullshit.
It always is, dude. Trust me. I worked a desk job for 2 years and wanted to kill myself at the end of it. So, that's a whole other deal. Back to Polaris, though. I liked how confident the band sounded on this. I liked that they had their original lead singer upgraded. He's back, but he's actually killing it now.
Yeah, he went to finishing school. There's no question about that. Because he's no longer thin sounding. He's got some fullness in his voice. And
real drums on this album.
Yeah.
Always preferred.
Well, that's because they made so much money off of Altered State. I mean, that's still their best reviewed album. That's what's sold the most for them. Obviously, I mean, whenever you have that kind of money, you can go back and do whatever you want afterwards. These guys are huge over in Europe.
I have no trouble believing that.
This is because that's right up that kind of alley. I mean, this is tailor-made. I will say that I was pleasantly surprised when the old lead singer came back. I was not expecting him to sound like he does now. It's way better. It kind of reminds me of Killswitch.
Like a Jesse Leach situation.
Yeah.
Where you're like, wow, we've got Jesse, he's great. And then we got Howard, he's really great. And then it's like, oh, we got Jesse back, but he's now really great too.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it makes you wonder, which camp are you in now?
I don't think it's a camp thing though with this band. I don't think it's like that at all. I think.
Well, no, I'm just saying, are you in the Daniel or are you in the who do you like better as a front man of Tesseract?
I mean, who do you think I like better?
It's going to be the dude named Daniel.
In my opinion, the guy named Dan should always be in charge. That's just the way it is. Although in a band like this, I find it hard to believe that the lead singer is in charge of anything. They're definitely this is definitely a band for musicians, and that's fine. I enjoy their stuff. I enjoy the soundscapes they come up with. It's just hard for me to stay awake. It's not going to be my go-to when I want to listen to something cool, because in my defense, or with what I'm saying, there's a lot of bands that do music similar to this, like The Contortionist, but they're the whole package for me because they still have the extreme metal basis, whereas I don't think the Tesseract has that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with them not having an extreme metal base. It's just not my preference.
Well, I think Polaris specifically is an album you could give to an extreme metal fan. If somebody had never listened to progressive metal, just straight hard rock, heavy metal, even djent, Geoff could come in with his atmosphere and say, listen to Polaris and just tell me what you think.
That's part of the reason that I think that I like Tesseract in general as well. I think they can appeal to a lot of different people. You can get the metalheads involved. You can get the old proggy guys that love old school Genesis, and Rush, and let them listen to this, and they're gonna say, "Hey, yeah, I like the new generation. This is good."
And I feel like I don't have a lot to say about it because I'm into this. I like this kind of progressive metal that pulls from everything but puts it together in a presentable package, not an overly atmospheric or overly expecting me as the listener to buy into the band and their whole demeanor, and we're being dark and atmospheric, and you need to sit down and listen to the mood. Don't just listen to the music. I shouldn't have to do that. I should be able to put the album on and listen to it and decide for myself how much effort and time I'm going to give it.
As Dan has infamously said, they're not up their own ass. Because this type of music, it's real easy for that to happen.
That's a good point. This doesn't sound like it's up their own ass.
Yeah, I don't get that vibe from this at all.
And that is not an easy thing to accomplish with this style of music.
I wonder why that is. Is it mixed differently than other bands? Is the vocalist at the perfect level that you don't feel forced to listen to him?
Well, I know the guitarist does, I think it's Alec or Alce. I've seen it spelt both ways. A-L-E-C and A-L-C-E. I don't know which is which. I think it's kind of a joke in the band at this point in time. But he does a lot of the production work, and I think he is kind of the driving vision behind it. It walks that tightrope better than most in this genre.
I don't think that it's a production thing. I think it's dedication to songwriting. People that are up their own ass are dedicated to one thing, themselves. It's a whole lot of looky what I can do.
Hey, it's nice in here.
There's some really cool stuff on these records that's like, wow, it probably was really hard for them to play that in that time signature. Or they made this really weird abrupt change that at first I wasn't on board with, but now I'm on board with it. They made it work. There's an absolute dedication to the songs themselves, and it's not just one member showing off over everyone else, and that's what the difference is.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's that transition. It's not like, hey, I have a bunch of cool shit, listen to me do it. It's, hey, I have a bunch of cool shit, and listen how well we can transition from one thing to the other. And that's, I think, a challenge that a lot of bands within the proggy and technical aspect of music doesn't seem to get very well, is how well can you transition from point A to point B. And that's one thing that Tesseract does in spades.
2018. Sonder.
This is the shit, man.
Sometimes Geoff just sums it up in one sentence.
It's kind of okay.
Kind of okay. Are you serious, man?
Remember how I said the last album doesn't hesitate and comes right out in front and hits you with everything, but then still steps back for a moment and allows the atmosphere to bloom? I didn't say it exactly like that, but you got what I was saying.
I've listened to the first 10 minutes of this album 4 times this week.
This one slows down.
Fell asleep every single time. It's not bad. It's just the next album by Tesseract.
Oh, damn.
I'm sorry. It's not bad. Like I said, this band is good. They are on a level that most other bands are not on, but it is all kind of starting to blend together now.
Is that a bad thing, though, if you like this?
No.
I don't get that, but I get all kind of nerdy on this shit. So,
okay,
Luminary,
tell me about what on Sonder differentiates the band from their previous 3 releases.
I didn't say that. I understand what you're saying, but I can tell distinctly that this is this album, not the previous album. But I get what you're saying. You're saying the song structures, especially the guitar tones, is pretty consistent throughout all 4 albums.
Do you remember what I said about Fear Factory, how the band's entire sound is based off of what they pull out of a single bag of tricks?
I guess I do.
It's kind of the same thing here. I don't think you're going to hear something on a Tesseract album that you're not going to hear on the other Tesseract albums. It's not a bad thing. As a matter of fact, I was listening to an interview with Ryan Clark of Demon Hunter this week, and he was explaining the reason Demon Hunter stuff all sounds the same is because they're a brand. If you go to McDonald's and they give you Taco Bell, you're going to be pissed. Or you would have chosen to go to Taco Bell. It's not the best explanation for what I'm trying to say, but I just thought I would let a famous person say it instead of me.
Yeah, but I don't like his brand. I like this brand.
Right. It's not about whether Demon Hunter's good or not. It's just about like what he's saying is that like people that like Tesseract are going to be fine with an album like Sonder. Somebody like me that wasn't really that on board in the first place, through no fault of theirs, it's hard to keep me on board because I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's a fourth album. If I was looking for something different, it's obvious that I'm not going to get it.
Yeah, it's because you are more dude bro. You looking for that beat down.
Dude, bro.
Yes.
Do you even prog metal, bro?
No, you do not.
Oh, I do.
Just not this.
I listened to so much Aborted last week. And Obscura.
Okay, now you're talking.
Dude, Aborted's really good. If you haven't listened to
I have.
If you haven't listened to their last 3 albums, you need to just shut the fuck up.
I didn't say anything bad about them.
I'm already getting pumped up about it.
You're getting defensive about it.
Anyway, let's get back to Sonder, okay?
I don't know. I like that ethereal kind of scream that's back on this one. I like his falsetto. His falsetto is really good. I've said that already, but I think it deserves another mention.
It sounds better than the first album.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a redo. Wait a minute. If you take the S and the D and the R out, you've got one.
That's right.
SDR. Isn't that Geoff's name on Discord?
SDRE.
Oh, man.
Sunny Day Real Estate.
This is getting crazy. The level of conspiracy here.
Yes.
No, I think Sonder is a perfectly serviceable Tesseract album. I don't have any problems with it. It's fine. I've fallen asleep to it a whole bunch of times because for some reason this band just doesn't grab me. And again, it's through no fault of their own.
You got to be into this kind of music and this vocal styling to enjoy it, I would say. It's not going to be overly emotional. That's not what this is. It's designed to be overly technical and almost to the point of being pretty.
It's like eating vanilla pudding.
But I like vanilla pudding.
But like I need there to be like raisins or something in it. And I don't get that here.
Right.
You had me at vanilla pudding. You lost me at raisins. Overall, I think Tesseract is a good band, and you can count this as my final thought. There's nothing wrong with this band. If you like progressive metal, atmospheric metal, do you like Between the Buried and Me? Do you like Opeth? Do you like the non-John Petrucci-centric Dream Theater? You're probably going to like Tesseract. To me, they represent that band that you hear in the background of the movie when the main character is walking down the street, walking past the club with the people standing out front going, "Why won't you let me in?" And the guy's got the flashlight, and there's a band in there somewhere with lights flashing, and they're playing, and you think, wow, that's really cool. Maybe I should stop and listen to that, but then you remember you're watching a movie, and you have to follow the main character. It will grab you and hang on to you if this is what you're looking for. But if you're a casual listener or a casual progressive metal fan, you're still going to like it. If you're like me, you're going to go listen to Colors and remember how good this really can be.
Ouch. So I know everybody in this room is a bigger BT Bam fan than Tesseract, except for me. I'm the opposite. This album is good. All 4 albums are good. Altered State is, for me, it is Altered State. I mean, it is another dimension for this band. It is almost to say like a one-hit wonder, because I think the other 3 albums are good, but there's something missing. Whatever the chemistry was on Altered State, it made it magical for me. It was everything that I'm looking for in a proggy technical album. It was damn near close to perfection for me, outside of the fact that some of the drums on it were programmed. But they did a good enough job of programming it that it was hard to tell that they were programmed, if that makes any sense. I really wanted to do this episode for Altered State because it is, in my opinion, one of the best proggy albums that, like we said, in the last 15 years. It is amazing to me. And I wish that Ash was still with the band. I know he's out doing his own thing with Voices from the Fuselage. I wish that they had better production values, because Ash kind of gets lost in the music on those albums. But he's just, it was like the magical formula on Altered State, and it just did it for me. There's no other Altered State just did it for me. There is no other way to put it than that. It was just the perfect combination of what me as a listener personally was looking for. And I love it. What about you, Dan? You going to shit on it too?
I think Tesseract is a good band for people that want to get into kind of more off the beaten path metal or hard rock. I think the biggest problem is some asshole like me is going to be like, check out this super awesome progressive band. They're called Opeth. And then they get the wrong album by Opeth because they're not used to the gutturals. So like they're listening to something really pretty, and then a second later they hear it's just like, and then I dipped the cookie into the great white abyss, and then I ate it, and it was so tasty, and then I raped somebody. I think that's really off-putting to people that are trying to get into progressive metal, and the only band they really know is Dream Theater. So like people sometimes when they hear those Cookie Monster vocals come in on a band like this, they're kind of like, oh, I didn't really need that, or I didn't ask for that. I think for people like that, I think Tesseract is exactly what they need. If somebody was like, hey, I'm not really into screamy music, but I like stuff that's heavy and technical, yeah, dude, check out Tesseract. I think you'll really dig it. But for guys like me, gotta have those gutturals in there, man. Gotta eat my cookies and milk.
Is Tesseract a good band to keep in your back pocket for somebody that doesn't listen to extremely technical metal or death metal?
I think it's a good band for somebody who likes rock or like old school progressive music, and you want to ease them into metal. They are fantastic for that.
So this is a good entry point.
Yeah, it's a fantastic entry point in my opinion. Especially, I think you should listen to Altered State first. Just forget about one, and then probably go on to like Polaris and Sonder, because then you get the screaming. Before that, I wouldn't, because most of those people, screaming's not their thing in music, and you have to ease them in slowly. But the screaming fits, and it's not the prominent aspect of the music. I kind of feel the same way about Language by the Contortionist is another really good one to get somebody in, gently and slowly so they can finally, understand what it is that we like about this music.
Dan, what's your album of the week?
Despite the fact that I've been forced to listen to the 2 new Demon Hunter albums, it's not either one of those.
Okay, good.
I'm going to go with Necropolis by Vader.
Ooh. Dude, Vader's got this crazy music video out that I've been wanting to watch again, and I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Did you know that Vader is the reason why the band the Eagles of Death Metal are called the Eagles of Death Metal?
Really?
Yeah, so I think it was it's the dude from Queens of the Stone Age, and he was also in oh my god, we talked about him. Oh my god, I can't believe I can't remember this guy's name.
Josh Homme or Nick Oliveri?
Josh Homme.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway. Josh Homme or Josh Homme. We never could figure out
how to say it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, he was showing the dudes from Eagles of Death Metal stuff from Vader. He's like, oh man, these guys are incredible. They're like the Eagles of Death Metal. And that's how they came up with the name.
Nice. That's very cool.
Geoff, what about you?
It is the most obvious, worst kept secret in the history of this podcast. Altered State by Tesseract. And it's a cop-out, too.
It was Caius. Caius was the band I couldn't think of the name of.
Oh, I thought it was just the name, Josh's name that you couldn't remember. I didn't realize.
No, I remember Josh, but I couldn't remember.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I would have said that.
Every time somebody says Caius, I want to say Queens of the Stone Age, and I know that's wrong.
For no reason other than I love the album. I spent a lot of time this week when I wasn't listening to Tesseract, listening to Powerman 5000 Transform. The album that they don't get a lot of acknowledgement for, and I don't know why. It's better than Tonight the Stars Revolt. I said it.
I think the Tonight the Stars Revolt's only got a handful of good tracks on it.
Hey guys, one more thing. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We appreciate you. We want to hear from you. There's so many different ways you can reach out to us. It's not even funny. Like, it's not funny. Don't laugh. You can send us an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/discography discussion. You can find us on Twitter under @discussmetal. You can actually find me personally at discussmetaldan or Joe at discussmetaljoe on Twitter. We're always on there lurking like creepers, so if you want to throw us a tweet or send us a Facebook message or something, please do so. We want to hear from you guys. We love hearing the band suggestions that you guys throw out. Every time somebody suggests a band for us to talk about, we throw it into a master list. So you will get to hear us do an episode on that band eventually.
And on that note, this has been episode 109 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Give me your money.